Well, in the last video, we poured the concrete for the basement floor. And from this cool drone photo taken by my neighbor, you can see there's lots of progress. We've started framing the basement walls. We've actually finished framing the exterior basement walls. Got some great timber framing details in place on the back to support the deck. We've tested the pathway with the quad of my neighbors, which is great. We know it works. It's not too steep. And we've poured the concrete on the roof of the cistern and the floor of the garage, and even started framing the upper walls for the main floor. So once again, I'm going to be lazy and not really edit the video and the photos too much. There'll be parts where you're bored. But reminder, this is just a record keeping for personal use so that someday we can look back and remember all the steps that went into the new house. Start with framing the exterior walls and the interior walls of the basement that support the floor. So not all the walls are in the basement. Bedrooms aren't defined yet, closets aren't in place, things like that. But all the framing that's required to support the floor is done. And the floor provides support for the foundation walls, which means that once the floors are in place on both the garage and the house, we can backfill completely around the foundation, which will make the site a lot easier to get around on. Again, some neat drone footage. So we learned it's not too steep. We learned the corner at the top, the little hairpin there, is manageable. We learned there's enough space behind the house for an ATV to get by. We also learned that we need to think carefully about what we put on the surface of the path, because those tires on the ATV are pretty aggressive, and on the way up, if you spin it all, you're just going to tear up the surface of the path. We'll work on this corner a bit more to make it a little bit more less of a drop like that, but the tightness of the turn is okay. So this is Clint's ATV and trailer, but that's the kind of setup that I'm envisioning getting. Get people down and up the hill if we need to, and we can get stuff like bark mulch and soil and bricks and things down the hill without killing ourselves. You get an idea, this is first week of May. You get an idea what the weather's been like. It's been beautiful. So there you see the floor joists in place. Under the white tarp is the floor sheathing, which is also now in place, you'll see later. Couldn't be more pleased with both the quality of the work and the pace and productivity of the team. They're doing great. Some beautiful cedar and fir framing that supports the deck and the little bump out in the living room. I love how they've tapered the top of the footings, the concrete post bases to match the base of the timber. Notched the beam into the top of the post. In lots of places you'll see the beam just sits on top of the post and it's held in place by a big iron bracket with bolts through everything. Not here, it's all woodworking. This is obviously a little bit earlier video, but you see the notches in the top of those posts. I think if you freeze it in the right angle, you'll see the notches to accept the beam. This was on Friday, the 8th of May. Pouring the suspended slab for the floor of the garage, which is also the roof of the cistern. So the only step left in the cistern is to cut the hatch open, install a liner, a bag type liner, and then finish all the plumbing that goes on the inside of it, which isn't much. The hatch is that rectangular thing on the left, so it's formed up so that they don't pour concrete in there, and then I think we just cut through the pan after the concrete's hard, and we'll get a lid manufactured out of steel so that you can walk across it. And we think we've figured out a way to make it flush with the top of the concrete so you're never tripping over the lid. You see Dustin starting to carry more lumber up onto the floor deck for framing the walls of the main floor.
What's that?
Everybody likes the island life.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, look around. Why not, eh?
Beautiful, yeah.
We've got family on the prairies, and yeah, I guess it's sort of spring there now, but not really.
I think the radio guy was...
So this is a little fitting that we installed through the floor that has got a connection on it that matches the hose on a water truck, called a Camlock fitting. So the truck can just back up on the driveway, stick his hose onto that fitting, and pump all the water if we ever need to get a delivery of water, because it's August and we have a bunch of company and the cistern's getting empty. Then we can just simply get a water truck in and he'll have an easy way to fill the cistern up. That's all for this one.